Welcome back to another episode of Warmaster's Workshop. Today we're going to be talking about a simple helmet fan circuit and how it's built, what all's involved in it. It's not as complicated as some people think. In fact, it's really simple, just almost as simple as the LED tutorial we did earlier. So I'm going to go over the basic parts, what we're going to need for this. We're going to need, definitely going to need your fans here, okay? This is a fan that's scavenged out of a laptop. It's a 40 millimeter fan, but it's 5 volts. This is a 40 millimeter fan like you'd buy in your local electronics store or maybe online. Those are 12 volts. Um, then we've got our 9-volt battery, which will run either one of these. Of course, it'll run the 5-volt longer than it's going to run the 12-volt, but we'll go over that shortly. You'll need your 9-volt connector. You're going to need a switch, and you're going to need some wire. Of course, the optional components are a battery clip and heat shrink. Those are all optional. We won't bother with those. I just wanted to put them there just to show you what they look like, but those are totally optional pieces. So with the fans, a lot of people get confused about what fans to use. Now, I personally like to use, these are laptop fans. They're also called horn fans because they kind of look like a French horn. You know, they got that nice shape. What they do is they pull air in from both sides here because the fans are, I'll hold it up here if you can see, the fans are like paddles. So they suck in from both sides and they blow out right here in the front where the big opening is at. So that's the fans that I use, a horn fan. Now mine are a little bit thinner than this, but this is basically the general type. Now this is just your, like I said, your standard 40 millimeter fan, and I know you probably can't see it right here, but these are 12 volts, 12 volt fans, which means they will run off of 9 volts, but they're going to run that battery out pretty quick. So I personally am a bigger fan of using these. Now you can buy these off the internet, the horn fans. You can get them off the internet. You don't have to buy a specific brand. You can just get generic ones, and they're not super expensive. They probably are around the same price as these. These, when Radio Shack was around, there may even be one around where you're at, but they sold these for like 12 bucks a pop, which I thought was pretty expensive. These can run about the same. Sometimes they can run more. That's if you've got access to old dead laptops, just yank them out of laptops. That's what I do, and they're free that way. So anyway, I'm gonna put the 40 millimeter away. We're gonna use the horn fan for this one, since I'm all about scavenging. And for our tools, the same tools we normally use: wire strippers, wire cutters, of course our tweezers, helping hands. Never leave home without those. You may need your digital multimeter here, and that's really about it. Oh, and of course our soldering iron and our soldering gun, or soldering gun, and you'll need your solder as well, and some electrical tape. Don't want to forget those. Those are important, so we can't do anything without those. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to get everything set up so we can start putting this together. It's not a very difficult circuit to make. So what we're going to do first is we're going to go ahead and we're going to clip our wire. We're going to go ahead and clip it. I'm just going to clip the positive side here because I'm going to leave that negative side together, because it's less work to have to deal with clipping and soldering both sides back together again. It's going to leave the black with a little excess wire, but it's not going to be anything we can't, curl up or anything like that. So we'll get our, there we go. And like I said, see, it's going to leave us with a little bit of wire, but you can always make a small loop there and it'll be okay. That's what I do, just make a little loop, just like that. And then you can always flip the loop up, just like that. So Alright, so we've got our wire there. Let's go ahead and strip our ends. Now you remember, you want to strip it enough so that you can attach it to your switch here. We're doing the switch first because that's probably the most difficult part of this whole circuit, just because of the kind of switch that I'm using. It's not a switch that has any eyelets I can run the wires through, so it's just an old post switch that I grabbed off of a piece of electronics from somewhere. Make it a little bit more. There we go. Now always remember to twist your wires into a nice braid here. Zoom back out. And of course, you got to wrap these around the post real well, just so that it'll get a little touch, and you're not going to have to worry about anything shorting out, or because shorting would be bad, especially where 9-volt batteries are concerned. You always want to be real careful with 9 volts, especially if you're putting them in your helmet. If they get too hot, they can bleed out the chemicals inside, and those chemicals are caustic, and they will damage your skin. I have seen some really bad things happen from 9-volt batteries that have bled on people. It's not good. So I suggest that if you put a 9-volt battery in your helmet, that you use battery enclosures. Any battery really that you put in your helmet, you really need to use enclosures. It's just the safe way to do things, because if they bleed on you, you're going to remember it for the rest of your life. Okay, so we have our switch. Alright. And these connections are pretty stout. So alright, now we're going to go ahead and clip and strip our ends here. Of course, these ends are already stripped on the battery. It's the battery holder, the battery clip. I kind of made this one out of another one, as you can see by the heat shrink here. I don't let these things go to waste. And so we're stripping these. Give it a turn, and then twist it together. At least that's the way I do it. It seems to work well that way. Same over here. Over here, I'm just gonna twist these. I think there's plenty of wire exposed. I can just twist them and get away with it. All right, now on this side, this is going to be our fan side. So we're going to clip, pull these apart. Of course, use our strippers to strip off. Just like that. Now I've already got the fan here. Already got some of that strip. We're going to have to strip it a little bit more, so. And of course, cutting it is not going to be helpful. That's a mistake everybody makes there. I'm just going to use the wire cutters here. There we go. There we are now. Nice and clean. So, of course, in this case, on the fan, blue is going to be negative. So we'll just put that with our black wire, since we use black to be negative. What a lot of people don't do real well is secure these, really get these ends nice and tight together. Now, what I'm going to do here, so we can get our soldering done, I'm going to go ahead and clip both sides into the helping hands so that I can get all that soldered without having to mess with it more than once. Always try to, as you get better with your electronics, you'll be able to be a little bit more efficient. Let me zoom down a touch. Remember, it's totally not a rush. Just take your time. By taking your time, you ensure that you do it well. Never has to be perfect, but it should be well. All right. Now, go ahead and get our tape. Of course, that heat shrink we were talking about, I was showing you earlier, this is where you would want to use it. If you're going to use heat shrink, you'd want to use little pieces right in here to cover these up. That's pretty much how I do it. I use heat shrink. Just because I like heat shrink, it's not going to come unraveled like tape. It's not easy to always find it. Sometimes you have to order it, or you can get it at certain hardware stores. You can also get it at electrical, you might be able to find it at a well, most hardware stores like Lowe's or Home Depot or Harbor Freight are going to carry it. So, and these connections, they can be a little pesky. There we go. And what I'm going to do here is just go completely around both. Boom, just like that. Third piece here, just to hold it all together, just like that. I'm going to do the same thing on this side. Now notice how I fold it back. And I do that so it doesn't put undue stress on the connection. It keeps all the stress. Right there on the plastic, or on the actual wires where the plastic is kind of melted together from the solder. It doesn't put undue stress on right here on this connection. I'm actually going to clip these. These are a little bit long, so I'm going to clip them down quite a bit to about right there. That's all you need. I mean, you really don't even need that. You clip them down shorter, but I like to leave just enough for the tape to catch hold to. So lay that right there for a moment. And like I always say, make sure that your exposed wire is completely covered. You don't want any of that shorting out. It's bad for the battery, which becomes bad for you. So never chance it. Alright, now for our switch connections, what I'm going to do here, I've got a heat gun, or a glue gun right here. And I'm just going to put a little bit of hot glue right there. Just enough to kind of coat them. Just for some protection. I know they're not going to come apart, but I know they're soldered very well, but I want them to be protected. So I put just enough hot glue to coat them. And then if you want, you can always take a piece of electrical tape and put over that. I'm not going to worry about that right now. Alright, so moment of truth. We're going to plug our battery in. Oh, it's already on. So plug our battery in. We're going to flip our switch. Oh, if I can get a hold of it here. And there we have our fan now. This fan is moving quite a bit of air. I don't really have any good way I can show you. Maybe here's a pattern. And you can see it's moving quite a bit of air. With this being a 5-volt or a 5-volt fan, it's going to move air like this for a good little while. Something you can do. See here, it'll blow all that off of the. Use it as a little cleaning device here to blow all that off. Now, something you can do. I don't know if you can hear it, but when it's when you put it against something, it actually increases the speed of the motor because it's got to suck more air in. One thing you can do with this, it's a little more advanced, but I can talk about it real quick, is you can put something called a potentiometer. This probably isn't the best. This is the only real example that I have of it. You can get these really small. I've got one in my helmet, but mine's a switch. You can get these potentiometers, and all they are, it's just a variable. It's just a variable resistor. Okay, it's like the volume on your radio. You know, the old button volume or the old knob volumes on a radio. When you turn this, you either increase or decrease the resistance depending on the way that it turns, and that will make your fan spin faster or slower. Okay, so you can do that and adjust your fan speed depending on where you're at. If you're inside and you don't need a lot of fan speed, you can always turn it down. If you're outside and need a good burst of cool air, then you can turn it all the way up and get that burst that you need. But it also helps save your battery, um, especially over time, because if you can adjust up and down, then you're not always running at full blast. And you don't really need to be running at full blast all the time unless you're outside in the summer. You know, in the summer sun, and you're somewhere where it gets really hot and humid, like here for me, I need the fans to run pretty much full speed when I'm outside doing a troop in the late spring throughout the summer, because it gets really hot and humid here, and the inside of the bucket will fog like crazy. So, and it's really hot, and it's such a nice thing to have a fan in your helmet. It's just refreshing. It's refreshing. So just gonna show you just some placement ideas to give you. This is some of you have seen the old display bucket I've taken to several conventions. So I'm just going to put this here. Let me get the helping hands out of the way. Just to give you some ideas on where to mount this. Now, normally, let's see, what's the best way to do this? There you go. Normally, I would have mine right on about the side at the back. Let's see if I can do this where you can see it. Right about there, right next to where the key slots are at. And of course, I'd have it pointing here so that it's sucking air in and then blowing it around. It's blowing it around the helmet. Okay, if you mount it next to your key slots, it's going to draw air from there, and it's going to blow it around the helmet. So it's going to blow all the way around to the front, and it's really nice to get that air coming around. So if you have one on both sides, here and here, then you've got air traveling around your entire, you've got it traveling around the back of your head, around your cheeks, around your neck, right around to the front of your face, and it's just really, really nice. It feels really good, and it's awesome. I did that several years ago, and that's pretty much the way I've had my fans ever since. Some people put the 40 millimeter box style fans up here in the front, blowing on their face. I don't really care for that. I think that's kind of I don't think that really works as well as people think it does. In the back, when you're hot and sweaty and you've got this air blowing around you, it actually blows across the sweat on your face, and it cools you down immensely. People don't realize how that air coming around from the back of the head to the front. When you have it coming around, you're capturing all that sweat, and you're basically using it as it's basically like an air conditioner. Okay, the sweat becomes the heat exchanger on your face, and the heat is pulled away from your face by the air, and it leaves it nice and cool as it comes around, and it keeps this visor from fogging. This visor will never fog if these fans are in the back. I guarantee it. I've been doing it for years, and I know for a fact you've got some nice fans like this in the back blowing around your entire helmet. These fans are not going to, this lens is not going to fog up in the front, and you're not going to have to worry about it. Now, you may get water that does form on it, but it's not going to fog because your breath will form water. But anyway, that's how my placement is. You can always use some hot glue to put it in. You can use some plumber's epoxy. You can use two-part epoxy, adhesive, whatever. But that's what I do, and that's what works best for me. So hopefully that will work for you too if you want to try it. But yeah, this is a very easy circuit to put together. It requires, like I said, like we went over, it requires basically 4 ingredients: a fan, a switch, a wire, and a battery. You've got the options of adding a potentiometer to control the speed, making it variable speed. You've got the options of putting some heat shrink on it. I would make sure that you put your batteries for these probably on the same side. What you can do, you can always put 2 of these 9-volt batteries together in series and then have them go through a resistor to power 2 fans and use a resistor. You can always use a resistance calculator to drop to the correct voltage to power 2 fans without blowing them out or anything, because you'll burn the fan up. It's not rated that high. So I would definitely put a resistor on it if you're going to do 2 fans and 2 batteries. But anyway, that is the simple helmet fan circuit. I hope you enjoyed it, and look forward to seeing you trooping.